His son's name is Arab Barghouti, and we welcome him back onto the Mother of All Talk shows. Arab, thank you for joining us. The United Nations again sunk to the occasion. The ceasefire motion tabled by Algeria was passed with only one vote against. But that one vote was the vote of the United States, which promptly issued its veto. What kind of hope do Palestinians, do Arabs, what kind of hope should humans have in these international organizations if the United States can be opposed by every other country and yet wreck an attempt to bring about a ceasefire?
First of all, thank you so much for having me again, George. I think if we talk about hope and talk about what's happening in the UN and the voting and all of that, I think that it's very hard to find hope in the UN, in the Security Council anymore. I think that the Americans and the American government is insisting on getting naked in front of the whole world, like the other Western governments, to show their true values, not the values that they promote. Their true values that we saw in Iraq, that we saw in Libya, that we saw in Syria, and now we're seeing in Palestine. It's not different than any of those. And they insist on killing any hope for only a ceasefire. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking for stopping the war. And I think this is a clear vision of what Western governments are working towards. But to go back to the hope side, part of it, I think that we do have hope. And we do have hope because the world is waking up. It's amazing to see young people all over the world educating themselves about Palestine, about the history of this cause, about why Palestinians are resisting in the first place. Many of the mainstream media and the Western governments want you to think that the Palestinians are just violent by nature, which is not true. Resistance exists because there is an illegal occupation of our land that is by international law, by the UN, not only by Palestinians. So it's amazing to see the young people all over the world, because these young people will become the leaders of the future, the politicians of the future. And I have so much hope that it's a start of a big movement, that things in Palestine will move to the better. And I think someone like you, who has a great history of participating in the apartheid regime in South Africa, can see that there is a glimpse of hope and things are changing. And yes, they take time. But I want to send my regards to all these youth movements, especially my friends in Jewish Voice for Peace and many other Jewish groups that are speaking up against what's happening, because I think it's very normal for them to think that things are not moving, things are just stuck. But things like this will take time, and we will have to wait, and we will have to keep moving. And we can't fail our people in Gaza and just say, yeah, things are not moving and I lost hope. No, we can't afford that. We need to all keep going and keep moving forward until the war stops, and until Palestinian children are safe like any other children all over the world.
Now, your mother and father called you by a great name, Arab. Its civilization, its language, the language of the Prophet Muhammad, of Islam. Islam came to the Arabs. It stretches from Marrakesh to Bahrain, from the Atlantic to the Gulf. What's your feeling as an Arab about the failure of most of the Arabs to even raise their voices meaningfully, let alone raising their hands against this terrible crime?
Well, I think it's very disappointing when you look at the Arab governments. They did, they are bearing witness of the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza, and you would expect more from Arab governments. And I'm not gonna say Arab governments and just generalize, because some of them have been playing a really vital and good role towards the Palestinian cause and still playing, but the vast majority of them are not. And I think this shows you the amount of control that the Western governments and especially the American government has in the region on these governments. But to go back to the hope, I don't think you'll find hope with governments. You'll find hope with people. We have 400 million Arabs in the region, and I think the vast majority of the 400 million are big supporters of the Palestinian cause and have been moving, protesting and speaking out about what's happening in Palestine. But unfortunately, we have also some government restrictions that does not allow them to speak up like the way they want to. But I think that if we work together, if we unite in solidarity with what's happening in Gaza, we will find that we have many things to do together. So yes, the governments are something that is disappointing to us to see that they are literally witnessing what's happening without moving whatsoever. But at the same time, we know that we have brothers and sisters, 400 million brothers and sisters in the Arab world that are feeling with us and can make change happen.
Now, what's the situation on the ground, Arab? Everyone, of course, is quite rightly fixated upon the slaughter in Gaza. But the slaughter in the West Bank has also picked up. We have a situation, I'm going to talk about it later, where a Christian pastor from Bethlehem, who spoke so memorably at Christmas time, became a world celebrity, was denied an audience with the Archbishop of Canterbury today because he had shared a platform with Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of Her Majesty's opposition, a member of Parliament, proving that there was no room at the inn for the pastor from Bethlehem. The situation in the West Bank for Muslims as well as Christians is pretty drastic, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's going under the radar. I think that the Israeli government is taking the chance and the advantage that the people, the whole world is busy with what's happening, the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza, and taking this chance to collectively punish the Palestinian people all over Palestine. We have many cases of stolen houses, demolished houses. We have thousands of prisoners that got imprisoned from the West Bank since October the 7th. We have so much settler terrorism, what I call settler terrorism, but unfortunately you won't find that term in the mainstream media because it's not Muslims that committed those crimes. But just a couple of days ago, the settlers went into Hawara for maybe the third, fourth, fifth time during a year, in a span of a year, and they burned people's cars, houses, and this is not the first time. Settlers are unleashed in the West Bank. We have more than 700,000 to 800,000 settlers living illegally in the West Bank, and they keep expanding these settlements, what we call the cancer of the West Bank. And I think that the things that are unfolding in the West Bank are very dangerous, and especially that Ramadan is coming, I think that it will be a big problem very soon. But I want to take that chance to also talk about the Palestinian political prisoners, because since the last time we talked more than 2 months ago, I think things got really worse in prisons, because we have now 10 prisoners that got killed inside Israeli prison. That's the documented cases, of course, since October the 7th, other than the many tens, if not hundreds, of people who we haven't heard anything about them from Gaza since October the 7th. Things are going worse in terms of the conditions, the harsh conditions. Prisoners are not given enough food, are not given hygiene, are not given clothes. They are put in solitary confinement. They are getting beaten up. Yesterday, or actually today, we lost Khalid al-Shawish, who is one of the biggest freedom fighters of Fatah in the Second Intifada in 2002. And he's been in prison since then, since 2007, and because of health conditions and which he was neglected for years. Actually, he died today. And we have multiple other cases that got killed, literally killed by Israeli security guards. And the saddest thing about this is that there's no accountability. Like, you never hear about a security guard that got punished for killing, literally killing with their own hands, Palestinian prisoners like Tha'ir Abu Asab, like Arafat, like many other prisoners who got killed in the last few months only.
Finally, Arab, what's going to happen in Rafah if the Israeli armed forces invade Rafah? What will be the result?
This is a humanitarian disaster that's waiting to happen. And I think that if there was a time to put the biggest pressure on Israel, it would be this time. I think it's very important for everyone to understand that, as I said, it's not enough. Do not get used to the Palestinians getting killed. Do not normalize the Palestinian suffering. I think that we got to a point where some people are normalizing the Palestinian suffering as if it's something that is normal, and there is nothing wrong with that happening, because they're going after Hamas and they go all about all these excuses. I think that now is the time for people to go out and protest and speak out and raise their voices against what's happening, because we're talking about 1.5 million people in tents in a place that is so tiny that can barely fit them. And any attacks that will happen, like a ground invasion, we're talking about tens of thousands of people that we will lose. Innocent civilians, children. And they want to note about the famine that is happening in Gaza and unfolding. But today we are hearing about official cases that have died and passed away because of lack of food, because of hunger. We are in 2024, and everyone is talking about, the prosperity, about the future, about the development, and all of that. And we're talking about not giving people food to live. This is what we got to. And I think the normalization of this is something that I can't get my head around. The fact that we are dying of hunger, we are dying, getting slaughtered in our homes, children, innocent people, and no one is talking on the government level. So now is the time for the people to say what they want to say, and to go protest, and to see some of the biggest protests like we saw 2 to 3 months ago. This is the time, and we can't get tired, and we can't fail our people in Gaza.
I mean, wonderful as always, Arab Barghouti. Please give your honorable mother my best wishes. Thank you for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows.